He had packed the last of his worn-out clothes, folded the letter of rejection he'd received from the only ranch that had ever felt like home, and tightened the rope around his old duffel bag when the bitter wind of Greystone Valley slapped his face, as if reminding him that even the sky was tired of him lingering. Noah Granger, once a respected ranch hand, now stood alone at the edge of the dusty road, the entire town shrinking behind him with every breath he took. He told himself for the 100th time that leaving was the only way to silence the ache of loss that had settled inside him like a stone after his brother's death, but deep down he knew he wasn't running toward a future. He was only running away from memories that clawed at him whenever he closed his eyes. He didn't see the small figure hurrying toward him until a soft voice, trembling but determined, called out, "Mr. Granger, please wait." When he turned, he saw a woman in a faded blue shawl, her hands clutched around the collar of a little boy whose limp seemed to slow them both. Her face wasn't the kind he would have remembered from crowded rooms or dances. No, hers carried the quiet kind of beauty that came from weathering storms and still choosing gentleness. Her name was Eliza Ward, a widow who'd lost her husband in a mill accident 2 winters ago. And though Noah had only met her twice at the general store, he'd always felt something shift inside him when she smiled at him, something dangerously close to hope. She took a step closer, her breath forming small clouds in the cold dawn air. "I heard you were leaving town," she said, and though she tried to keep her voice steady, he caught the tremor beneath it. "I'm sorry," Noah replied, clearing his throat. "There's nothing left for me here." Instead of insisting otherwise, she gently pushed the boy forward. "My boy needs someone like you." That single sentence hit him harder than any blow he'd taken in barn fights or bar scuffles, and suddenly the road beneath his boots didn't feel so certain anymore. The boy, Samuel, peeked up at him with wide brown eyes, the kind that carried both shyness and a fierce hunger for connection. Noah knelt, instinctively reaching out, but paused when he saw the child wince. Eliza quickly explained that Samuel had been born with a weakened leg, making it difficult for him to keep up with the other children and nearly impossible to help with the small chores that kept their struggling homestead alive. "I'm not asking for charity," she added, her voice breaking with the humility of a woman who had learned to survive without pride. "I know you're hurting. I know you want to leave, but my boy, he hasn't spoken to a single man since his father died, and the moment he saw you at the store last week, he smiled. He hadn't smiled in months." Noah swallowed hard, something warm blooming in a place inside him he thought had died with his brother, a place that still remembered how it felt to protect someone, to belong to someone. He looked down at Samuel again, gently lifting the brim of the boy's hat. "Did you really smile at me?" he asked. Samuel nodded, barely, then reached out a tiny hand and wrapped his fingers around Noah's. That simple touch felt like the world stitching itself back together. Noah followed them back to their small homestead, tucked between 2 worn hills and leaning slightly as if the house itself were exhausted from holding so many sorrows. Inside, the floors creaked, the stove coughed more than it warmed, and the wallpaper peeled like it had given up years ago. But the air held something Noah hadn't felt in a long time, a quiet, fragile peace. As days turned into weeks, he found himself repairing fences, mending leaking roofs, teaching Samuel how to tie knots and brush the horses, and sharing late night cups of weak coffee with Eliza as they talked in whispers long after the boy had fallen asleep. Noah learned things he never expected, that Samuel loved stories about outlaws but was terrified of thunderstorms, that Eliza hummed a tune her husband used to play on the fiddle when she didn't realize she was humming, that sometimes she stared at the empty chair by the fireplace as if memory was a wound she couldn't stop reopening. In return, Eliza learned about Noah's brother, about the night Noah tried saving him from a river flood and failed, about the guilt that had weighed on him until he could barely breathe. One night, as the sky cracked open with thunder and Samuel crawled into Noah's arms, clinging to him with trust so absolute it nearly broke him. Noah realized something. Leaving Greystone Valley had never been the cure. Healing required roots, not escape. But just as the pieces of his life seemed to be fitting back together, trouble came. Wearing the name of the wealthiest man in the valley, Mr. Charles Beaumont, who opened a new mill and wanted to buy Eliza's land at a price so insultingly low even the crows laughed at the offer. When she refused, he began sending men to intimidate her, breaking fences at night, letting their cattle ravage her garden, and spreading rumors meant to shame a widow simply for surviving. Noah confronted them more than once, driving them away, but each time he did, the danger grew sharper. One evening, after a particularly heated confrontation, Noah tried to pack his bag again, convinced that staying would only bring more harm to Eliza and Samuel. But Eliza stopped him in the doorway, tears standing in her eyes. "You think leaving will save us," she whispered. "Noah, my boy needs you. I need you, and you need us too." Her words shook him, but what broke his resolve was Samuel limping toward him, dragging the tiny wooden horse Noah had carved for him, pressing it into Noah's hands like an offering. "Please stay," the boy whispered. "You make Mom smile." Noah dropped to his knees and pulled Samuel into his arms, the weight of the child's trust anchoring him more firmly than any promise ever had. The final test came on a cold spring night when Beaumont's men returned, this time with torches. Noah met them at the gate, standing alone in the moonlight, his shadow long and unyielding. The confrontation was fierce, but Noah refused to let a widow and her son lose the only home they had left. By dawn, the sheriff, fed up with Beaumont's bullying, arrived, finally taking action and arresting the men responsible. News spread quickly, and the townsfolk, many of whom respected Eliza's resilience and admired Noah's quiet courage, rallied behind them. With enough signatures, the town council blocked Beaumont's attempt to seize the land. For the first time in years, hope bloomed on the Ward homestead like wildflowers after a storm. Months later, Noah stood in the same spot where he had once prepared to leave town, watching Samuel race. Yes, race across the yard with a new brace the local doctor had fitted him with. Eliza joined Noah, her hand brushing his. "You stayed," she said softly. Noah turned to her, heart full in a way he never imagined possible. "I didn't stay," he corrected gently. "I found where I belong." And when Eliza leaned her head against his shoulder, the horizon didn't look like an escape route anymore. It looked like a future, one built not on running away, but on the simple, life-changing moment when a gentle widow whispered, "My boy needs someone like you," and a broken man finally listened.